Hi, this is the Filmway channel and this is a warfare movie. The feed is based on real events. Iraq, 2006. The Navy SEAL squad must take up a firing position to cover the Marines. The military is advancing under cover of night. They found a suitable house. The door was unlocked, so a dozen American men entered the home of an Iraqi family without any problems. There is another family living in a house on the top floor. They are separated by a wall. The soldier grabbed a sledgehammer and began hammering on this wall. The shocked family screamed in horror and huddled in a corner of the room. So two families found themselves trapped in their own home. The sniper took a comfortable position on the bed. Another opening was made in the outer wall. Elliot keeps an eye on what's going on outside and makes notes in a notebook. The Navy SEALs are awaiting further instructions. They are tracking all suspicious men of military age who may pose a danger to them. For example, a man in a white t-shirt with a phone stared at their building. He was also included in the list. Lieutenant MacDonald monitors the picture provided by the drone. A few suspicious types are scurrying back and forth. One of them started looking out the window. Eric realizes that they are starting to get squeezed. Apparently, the enemy heard them hammering the wall at night. Elliot spotted another guy on the roof who was constantly looking in their direction. A commotion broke out at the other end of the city, which left our squad without air support. Suddenly, the street began to empty. Civilians are hiding in buildings, which means it's going to be hot here right now. An unknown person is constantly shouting into a megaphone. All the locals were called to kill Americans. The military sent interpreters to guard the ground floor. The sniper now needs to be especially careful. However, he had just run out of tobacco, and Mustache asked Frank to replace him. The blonde spotted a blue Opel that stopped at the house opposite. 4 men got out of the car. One of them had a Kalash. 6 more people came out of another building. They definitely draw forces together. Elliot returned to the bed. A minute later, a grenade was thrown into the hole. There was an explosion. After another 10 seconds, the building began to be shelled and surrounded from all sides. The Americans returned fire. Elliot was injured. The fighters requested air support and evacuation for the injured soldier. Ray ran into the room to pick up the sniper's equipment, but couldn't find it because of the smoke. Bradley will be here in 10 minutes. Under the cover of the machine gunners, Eric entered the room again. He had found Elliot's equipment. After all, he was finally able to put on a bulletproof vest. Each fighter made sure that his equipment was with him. Before moving out, the Navy SEALs detonated the mines that were installed around the perimeter. Iraqi families are terrified of what is happening to their home. They are also threatened with weapons and demanded to keep their hands in sight at all times. The translators were forced to cover the squad. They are very scared. The Americans will evacuate to shell-shocked soldiers who were in the room, and then return back to the house. The IFV will arrive in 2 minutes. The translators don't like being sent ahead of the rest of the group to be slaughtered. Frank threw a smoke grenade on the doorstep of the house. The cunning Americans sent translators ahead, and when they made sure that they weren't being shot at, they also went outside. When the squad approached Bradley, a powerful explosion occurred. Thick black smoke obscured the sun. The shell-shocked fighter somehow got to his feet and ran forward. But the translators were blown to pieces. Their remains are scattered all over the street. Sam saw that his leg was on fire, but he couldn't do anything about it. Gradually, the rest of the squad members come to their senses. Eric heard Sam's screams and ran over to him to finally put out the fire. Max grabbed his machine gun and began randomly hovering around the surrounding buildings. The sniper, who was supposed to be evacuated, seems to have died. Sam's leg is torn apart, and he screamed in pain when he was dragged into the building. Ray stared at his dead comrade, but the sound of gunfire brought him to his senses and he dragged Elliot's body into the house. They ran into an improvised explosive device. The injured Bradley immediately left. Sam went from screaming to wheezing. Eric demands that support arrive as soon as possible. They started throwing grenades at the house. The fighters need to hide behind 2 walls. The wounded Sam had to be dragged to another room. He screamed again in a voice that wasn't his own. Ray began to push a bandage into his wound to stop the bleeding. Everyone saw that Sam's legs had turned into 2 pieces of meat, and Rockets was in a panic. He wanted to leave the house, but they set him back on the bed. Ray reported the seriously injured and requested evacuation again. Sam tried to look at his feet and wheezed again. The fighter cannot open fire, but it is capable of making a show of force. To do this, the pilot flew as low as possible above the ground. Due to the strong nose, the soldier's ears were blocked. Blood continues to ooze from Sam's legs. Ray tried to apply a tourniquet, but his hands are shaking. Because of this, he couldn't handle it and just leaned on the wound with his knee. Eric secured him and applied a tourniquet instead. Suddenly Elliot woke up. It turned out that he was still alive. The sniper screams and demands morphine. But McDonald screwed up and injected morphine into his finger. Fortunately, there are still supplies. Finally, Elliot and Sam got their painkillers. Only Sam complains that it's not enough for him, but he can't do it anymore. Reinforcements are approaching the building, but they are distracted by the enemy. The militants set up an ambush in several places. Despite this, the Marines are gradually moving forward. Several fighters had already run into the courtyard. The Iraqis are mostly firing from the roofs and windows of nearby buildings. You can't do without smoke grenades here. Reinforcements entered the house. The fighters shared morphine and bandages. Eric was in a state of shock in the room with the families. He's the squad leader, but he's not thinking straight right now. So he handed over command to Jacob. Elliot suffered multiple injuries. Phosphorus is burning inside it right now. One fool first stepped on Sam's foot and then patted the wound to encourage him. Now it will take as many as for Bradley's to evacuate. But first it is necessary to clear the area of militants. Two soldiers with machine guns went out onto the roof and began to work on the enemy. At that time, information about Bradley was received. They won't come because of the risk of running into other explosive devices. Jake ordered the communications officer to impersonate the commander and order Bradley to be sent to them anyway. It worked cleverly. The infantry fighting vehicles will arrive here now. The machine gunners on the roof had a hard time. The enemy is everywhere and firing heavily. It is important for soldiers not to leave their equipment in place, so risking his life. One of the soldiers ran out onto the road to pick up a sledgehammer. The Bradleys will be here in 4 minutes. In the end, the machine gunners were suppressed by fire. They could only crawl back into the room. 2 infantry fighting vehicles or approaching the building. Evacuation of the wounded must be considered. Elliot was placed on a tarp to be carried outside. It's time for Sam to be patient. A fighter jet flew over the houses again to demonstrate its strength. Jakes ordered the riflemen to ensure a safe evacuation. An infantry fighting vehicle finally arrived at the house. The wounded were carried to the exit, and the shooters began to work on the buildings. Elliot was first placed in the armored car. Then Sam. The first group, almost in its entirety, also climbed into Bradley. The rest returned to the house, and the militants began to squeeze the second group. They had already climbed onto the roof, so Jake requested that the Bradleys simply demolish their roof with their guns. We're not on the top floor. Shoot at him. The families were ordered to duck. 2 other Bradleys arrived and demolished the second floor of the building, along with the Iraqis holed up there. After that, armored vehicles began to work on neighboring buildings, destroying them. For what? The poor woman screams, left without a home. A fighter jet flew over from above again. It's time for the second group to evacuate. One by one, the soldiers ran inside the vehicles through the open hatches. The evacuation was successful, and not a single soldier was injured. The Bradleys immediately left the street. Shocked families came out of the bedroom and looked at the ruins of their house. Iraqis came out of neighboring buildings and approached the remains of the interpreters. At the end of the tape, we see the real Elliot. He survived, but lost his leg and the ability to speak. We were also shown photos of all the Navy SEALs who participated in this mission.